Hi, today I'm talking about difficult employee conversations. Specifically, three things. One, why it can be such a problem if difficult conversations go badly. Two, why managers can have a tough time having those difficult conversations. And three, what managers can do to make them go as smoothly as possible. So first, why difficult conversations can be a problem. So let's have a performance conversation. If an employee has a performance issue, they're not meeting a sales quota, they're making too many mistakes in their work, they're missing too much work, any of those things, that can be really challenging. And we'll get to why that can be so challenging in a minute. But it's important that that conversation with the employee identify what exactly the problem is, how that's not meeting the expectations of the company, and what is expected of the employee to be able to be successful in role and stay employed. It sounds really basic, but those who have had the conversations know it can actually be pretty challenging. If the conversation goes wrongly, the impacts can be really substantial for a company. So even at best, the conversation can mean an employee walks away from it, maybe doesn't have a clear understanding of what's expected, or feels like they were treated unfairly. If any of those are true, it can impact the employee's performance. So they perform even worse than they had. They stop showing up for work. They stay employed, but they're looking elsewhere for a new role. Any of those things can slow down that, which can have impacts on the team and the company as a whole. And that's just the impacts of performance. Take it to the other side, the other extreme. If a conversation goes badly, that may trigger an employee to want to file an employment lawsuit. If eventually they lose employment, they may really be bad-mouthing the company to their family and friends, potential clients, customers. But also, again, litigation can be real. I've been a practicing employment attorney and worked in HR for many years. So I've seen how so many pieces of litigation that are time and cost expensive for companies can really stem from having just conversations that could have gone better. So that's why it's so important that the conversations go as smoothly as possible so that someone walks away. Even if at the end of the day they decide the job's not for them, you want them to feel like they were treated fairly and have the expectations. I always say your employees are walking billboards. Even if they're not performing, if things aren't right for them, the way they feel like they were treated, they will broadcast to the world. And if they really feel like they're treated badly, then they tend to go and can file litigation and take more measures like that. So that's why it can be such a challenge if conversations don't go well. But second, what about those conversations can be so difficult? And beyond that, I actually see three reasons of why managers can have a difficult time having challenging conversations with employees. The first can often be the manager's not ready to be a manager, hasn't gotten training. You may have seen it. Think of a really strong salesperson that's a great individual contributor, meaning they can go and make all kinds of sales. So oftentimes companies say, great, we will take you and we'll try to replicate you by putting you in charge of the sales team. Oftentimes they're dropped into this role without a parachute or training, so to speak. So all of a sudden, the employee who's been a high performer may have a number of individuals reporting to them that aren't as capable. That can lead to really disastrous situations. A high performer trying to coach lesser performers or different personalities without training can do so many things. That can look like, being frustrated, yelling, not understanding how this employee can't just go and do their job without instruction. Because when you're a manager, it's not necessarily just doing that individual contributor's job. That's what you want the employees to do. It's figuring out how to communicate and coach to get the most out of each employee. So having that training. So oftentimes when a manager has to have a conversation, they're not equipped to do it. So they may feel like they're communicating a message, but they don't have the muscle that they've exercised to be able to have it properly. So the not ready or not training is a huge area where I've seen challenges come about where managers just feel uncomfortable trying to have that conversation. Two, managers will say it feels bad. I don't want to kick them when they're down. I don't want to make them feel worse. Sometimes it's this person has XYZ going on in their personal life. There's always situations when you have humans on a team, but it's critical that you be honest with employees and caring at the same point. If you try to dance around an issue, you have a person come in, you start complimenting them, You work in there in the middle of the conversation, some things they could do better, and then end with a compliment, like a compliment sandwich, sometimes I'll call it. That's a really natural inclination for managers, especially those newer or not trained managers, to want to do, to soften the message a bit. The flip side of that is the employee comes in and may not have any idea that this is really a tough performance conversation, because all they hear is some platitudes. You're doing this well, you can work on this, and they don't walk away with clear goals. And so it's that feeling of, I don't want to make someone feel bad, that's actually having really bad impacts on the employee by not being honest, by pointing out where they need to improve. The third is that it can feel like it's too hard and it's not worth the effort. I've certainly seen this, where a manager will say, I know this isn't going to be successful. What do I have to do, to check the box on this employee? That means, okay, I have a conversation. How long are we with this person? Can we just make a change right away? And that doesn't do any favors either, because at the end of the day, a team member is human. And again, it's important to identify where the deficiencies are, whether that's performance, whether that's the effort they're putting in. So it could be a sales goal. That could be a net product if they do written product. It could be activity. They're not making enough sales calls. Anything you identify that's the root product, you have to be able to give someone a chance. Again, the reasons for that are there's a multitude. One, it's a human being. At the end of the day, you've hired the person to really be able to give them a fair shot. You've got to lay out expectations. That doesn't mean you have to keep laying them out over and over and over again. But at the end of the day, even if you've had 1 million emails with someone, laying out very clearly with them, here's what the expectations are. Here's where you're currently performing. These are what you'll need to do to be able to be successful at this company and continue on employment with us. That can really have an impact to the employee to feel like they were treated fairly. So again, managers should take that time. And people will often say it's not worth the time. But if you think about it, even if it's, 15 minutes, 30 minutes a week or more check-ins than that, it can be worth it, because I always tell managers it's amazing the turnarounds employees can have when they really have a fire lit under them. So having that conversation, supporting them, and at the end of the day, it's not going to work out, then at least you've given them a chance. And in some future videos, I'll talk through exactly what that performance review period can look like and tools to get there. So those are the 3 main reasons I see managers having a challenging time. 1 is they're not ready or not trained. 2 is they think it feels bad. So as such, they're not honest with the employee. Or 3, they feel like the process is going to be too hard and it's not worth it. They've already written off the employee before they've even had the performance conversation. So the last item I'm talking about is what things managers can do to be better equipped to have those difficult conversations. A lot of what I've talked about is performance, but it can be performance, separation, even coaching, just routine coaching, anything like that managers can have trouble with. And it's okay, you're human too. But some of the things managers can do is 1, have a script. So that's something I've done, often throughout my career. And that's what I really focus on doing now with companies. I create these template scripts where I create custom ones for the clients, is a script for a tough conversation. I have done that for people in all sorts of roles, some of the most senior of senior roles, because that's kind of my bread and butter, to think about understanding what the issue is and how to communicate that. And I help to write that out and work with companies. So if you're a manager and having that script, I don't mean have a script and sit and read it out to the employee. I've seen that as well. And as you can imagine, that doesn't always translate like you'd think. Because if someone thinks, well, yes, this person has spent enough time to put this together, that's nice, but it feels very impersonal. So writing out a script, and you may have it to glance at. If you're on a remote computer, it's easier to look at it. But to have a script, so at least you feel comfortable in the conversation. And by script, one thing I've always done or often done, is write out a script, but then also think about some of the questions that the employee may ask. If they ask, what do you say? Or if someone asks a question you have no idea about, you don't want to say, let me go ask my lawyer, or let me go ask HR. That doesn't feel very empowering. You can always say, let me reflect on that. You may go and ask other people for their input, but you want to own that conversation rather than look like you're pointing them out. So having that script and being equipped with answers to what they may ask or say can do wonders to bring your confidence in, which then can make the employee feel like they understand what's expected of them a lot better. That's one thing. Another is to be honest. My point earlier was you don't want to make someone feel badly. Of course, we all understand that. And Hopefully nobody wants to. But, being honest means telling someone what their challenges are and using that language that's not kicking on someone while they're down, but walking through. You can always ask someone, let's talk about it. What's going on? You can have the human side of it, but being clear if it's sales numbers, and you can say things, we're having this conversation now because I want to gauge what your thoughts are. I don't want to have a more challenging conversation in a few weeks' time or a more unpleasant conversation in a few weeks' time. Saying that to paint that picture of what will happen if they're not able to meet expectations in a review period or just overall. So being honest with someone about their deficiencies is really, really critical. Not trying to paint this compliment sandwich so that you feel good about it, but the employee may not. So also it's important to ask the employee, do you understand what's expected of you? Walk me through, from this conversation, what you understand the expectations are. Having them repeat that back can be really, really important and ensure that you're both on the same page. Because I've often seen conversations, which is like a game of telephone, even if two people are sitting across the table from each other. So being honest with someone is very important. The last is to be supportive. So thinking through, taking time. If someone's having challenges, you may be frustrated, think, I trained them once, they should understand this. Okay, well, they may not. And you got to decide what you're going to do about it. Can you write them off? Maybe. You can write them off. Sure, it's always an option. The consequences of that may vary. Like I said, that can result from someone feeling treated unfairly, bad mouth, slow down their performance, look for another job, bring a lawsuit against the company. All that range of things are certainly can happen if you just write someone off. But if you take a second to train or ask employee, what don't you understand? Let's walk through it together and give them that, that you don't always have to be resentful of repeating yourself to ensure that employee understands it. Again, that doesn't mean that if someone's just not getting it, this job's just not for them, that's not going to end in, that person leaving the company and that being the right decision. That's possible. But being supportive, understanding, what don't you understand? Let's role play a bit. Taking that can not only help that employee and at least give them a fighting shot. And again, I've seen employees turn it around and perform in ways that the managers were amazed by. But it also can help you be a better manager. So being supportive, again, doing it in ways can really help you and your management style as well. So to recap, why it's important to have difficult conversations in a good way, because that can help ensure that employees perform, that they think fairly of you, they talk well about you to other potential employees of the company, to customers and clients. They feel like they're treated respectfully. And again, as I said, there's other consequences that can happen between people leaving. Turnover is such a challenge these days. Litigation risks that can stem from someone just like they weren't treated well, whether they have a valid legal claim or not. It can be a driver if someone feels like they weren't treated well. So it's important to be prepared and have these conversations. 2, why do managers have a hard time? 1, they may not be prepared. They may feel like it seems mean to the employee, or they may feel like it's a waste of the time and it's just going to end in termination anyway. And then 3, what managers can do. Have a script. Have a script at the ready. Again, this is something we provide in Manager Method with our HR consulting side. Ready templates. We provide custom ones if needed. Be honest with the employee. Be direct to ensure that while you're being caring, you're also being very candid with that employee. And then also 3rd, being supportive yet realistic. Okay, what can I support you in? How can we try to help this situation? So that's an overview of challenging conversations. So love any feedback below, any questions. Again, we'll continue on this to talk more about specific performance review plans and some of the tips and best practices there.